Hi, and welcome back to this week's divorce chat. So I'm here with Angela, my trusty office assistant, and I'm Laurel. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm Laurel. I'm the lawyer at Alinea Legal Coaching. So we've put together these divorce chats, as many of you will already know, to talk about everything that's non-legal after a separation and divorce, just so that if you're going through a separation or divorce, you don't feel quite so isolated, and that maybe you understand a little bit more about the emotional or patterns of behavior, things that are quite normal and typical that occur after a separation and divorce, and maybe share some ideas or tips or tricks or things that we have found to be effective at helping our clients get through this pretty difficult time. So today, what I wanted to talk about, we're not quite sure how to kind of explain it, but after a separation or divorce, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions, and you'll be navigating this. There's kind of like this in-between period where you're separated, but things haven't settled down. So it's the transition period. And it might be the time when you're negotiating your separation agreement. You might be in court litigating, you might be going to mediation, but things aren't settled. So you're kind of in this period of time where it's not going to last forever, but you're maybe vying for a position to either show a court or explain to someone else why you should be the one to have a certain, or the court or mediator, or in the negotiations you should have a certain parenting plan, for example. Mm-hmm. Right? So all that stuff is kind of the legal background. So you're making decisions on a daily basis. Let's talk about kids. Let's talk about parenting specifically. You're making decisions for your kids, and you're still also dealing with the end of this relationship. You're having to negotiate or litigate with someone who you've decided you cannot be in an intimate relationship with anymore, and you might not even like this person at all. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you think they're abusive, or maybe they're dangerous. So how do you make decisions, the right decisions for your kids, or what is that like to make the decisions? Let's get into the description process. That way, so it can be exhausting, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, you're busy processing all these emotions from the end of the relationship, or from your new normal. So on top of having to make these decisions, you're trying to figure out what your new life is like, and parent your children, and control your emotions, and earn a living, and wash laundry, and what have you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I think what I see, I've never been through a divorce, and just as a side note on that matter, doesn't mean that I'm less capable of empathizing or understanding what my clients go through. Mm-hmm. I would say no. I mean, I work with people going through separation, divorce, and I have done for many years. And I've seen, rather than just having one personal experience that colors my whole approach to family law, I have the kind of a little bit more of an objective perspective, where I've seen hundreds of people going through divorce and the different ways different people deal with it. So and at the end of the day, you're not paying me to be your counselor, or to really empathize or be your friend. You're paying me to know how you can manage the legal system. Mm-hmm. But I would say I do try to work really hard to understand what my clients are going through, and really understand the transformation that they go through on a daily basis to make decisions, but also over the course of a file. Mm-hmm. And I hope you don't mind me sharing, Angela, but you've been through a divorce.
Yes, I don't mind at all.
And so sometimes, we do talk about kind of well, what is this that I'm seeing? And what is this that I'm noticing? Is this something we should be concerned about? And when people come and consult with me about, let's say a parenting matter, making decisions, it's really interesting, especially in the most adversarial cases, ones where the parents really cannot make a decision together. They're really struggling to get on the same page. Mm-hmm. About the kids. And I will say, just for those of you who are not going through separation or divorce, many families are not in that situation. Yes. This is not a judgment or to put you down if you are in that situation. It's just, I just want to make it clear that like separation divorce doesn't have to be two parents who can't get along about parenting. A lot of parents are very much on the same page about how to parent their kids. And if you're not, that's fine. There's lots of supports and resources out there for you, and there's certainly no judgment attached to it. But what I was going to say is when parents like that come to me, a parent who is a client will come to me about a decision they need to make about their child, there's a lot of emotion attached, right? And their initial thought is sometimes I kind of think like, are you serious? Like, this is what you think you should do? Like, not in a judgment way, but more in a like, this seems like a very, like, are you being selfish or self-centered in this moment? Or are you making the decision that's right for your kid? And
ultimately they know their child better than anyone. So there is that option.
But yeah, no, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
They do know their kid best. I do not know people's kids. Like, I trust them to know their kid best. But what I try to work with them to figure out is like, is this really what's best for your kid, or is this what you secretly want for yourself? And sometimes I think as parents, we conflate what's best for our kids with what's best for us. And it's not always the truth, especially so that here you have I think what a huge mental shift for some parents when they're going through an adversarial divorce, separation with kids, is realizing it's really important. I don't want to ever see that person again. I never want to talk to them again. I still have to, unfortunately, but if I could, I would cut them out entirely. It's hard for them to realize that that's not the same. They're not in the same shoes as their kid.
That's right.
Right? That always, right? Unless there's something else going on, right? So they're not always in the same shoes as their kid. And it is actually, for some kids, vitally important to still maintain that relationship with both parents. But it's really hard if you really hate their other parent.
Yeah.
To kind of see that. And it's a really selfless way you need to be.
Yes. And it is, I mean, I've worked here with you since 2016, and I have children of my own, and I absolutely want to put their best interests first and foremost when it comes to any parenting matter. And even though I work here and work with people and hear the advice that you give, I still sometimes, make a decision, whether it's one I've thought out or one I've made very quickly, that I think is putting my children's best interests first. But then, you make this decision, and then you and I chat about it, and you bring up certain things, and it's like, oh, interesting. I did not consider that. And then that sort of changes the choices that I've made, and I reconsider, and it's like, oh, okay, I see. I've sort of gone off what's best for the kids and maybe veered on to more like what's easiest for me.
Yeah, that's actually, and maybe it's not what's best for you, it's what's easiest for you sometimes, right? And I think that's like, it's kind of like a blind, like the way maybe another way of saying what you said is like it's a little bit of a blind spot, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's a great way.
When I say like people come and they say like, this is what I think should occur or whatever, I sometimes I challenge them a bit on that. And I wonder, I'm like, why are they coming in to me with this kind of decision making? And like, how did they take my advice when I challenged them on that? Like, were they receptive to it, or were they pissed off, or what have you? But my whole thinking is like, I think it's very normal to do what you say, is like maybe making the decision of what's easiest for you in the moment, or what might be best for you in the moment. And it takes a process, perhaps consulting with someone who's maybe not as emotional about the whole situation, to kind of see the blind spots that maybe you have had and just can't, if they're blind spots, you can't see it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I would say like that is often the case with people who come to me with their things, or like, well, what should I do in this situation? And I think to myself, like, how can you not figure this out? It seems very straightforward, but I think the only reason it's straightforward to me is because I have an objectivity about it, where I'm not emotionally involved And for them, it's not straightforward at all. It's so emotional, and it's really hard to do the hard thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Without support.
And I mean, over time, what was in the best interest of your child, say when they're 7 might not necessarily be the same when they're 12 or when they're 14 or when they're 16. And so just because a decision that you've made in the past that was best for them, it's not.
Yeah, these things can change.
Be the same. Like even those grasping words here, but you get the gist of what
like you're saying. Like if you made a decision about how a parenting plan, for example, should have been when they were 7, it doesn't mean that that's going to fit them when they're 12 or when they're 13 or 14, 15. It would be easy if you could just keep it the same, right? So you don't have to think about it, plan your life around it. Everything's good, but unfortunately, much like kids grow out of their clothes, they grow out of their parenting situations or their parenting plans. So I mean, and it's probably a good thing. It is definitely a good thing, but it just means that you have to continually be mindful, I guess. And I guess that's what I would say is just, again, I'm coming from the perspective of the outsider looking in, that, if you want to have even if you're having a very adversarial divorce, you can still have a good divorce, in the sense that like you can have dignity through your divorce. You can be a better person through your divorce, right? You can make good decisions for you and your kids through your divorce, the best thing for you and your family, and you should. But sometimes I think that like if you find that you're struggling, or maybe you don't even know that you're struggling, maybe you're not struggling, but if you find that you're continually having conflict as a result of decisions you're making, maybe it's worthwhile getting another perspective from someone who's not involved.
Yes, yeah. It's just like we say with the documents, a second set of eyes is always better.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said with emotional things and emotional decisions. Like we often have these brainstorming sessions, and it's like I always come away with new ideas and better information than I had before. And I hope the same for you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a way of like learning and growing, right? And I think that's, so getting that, having it, and you don't want someone who's just going to be a yes man, right? Someone who's just going to agree with whatever you say, which, we all have those friends and family who are just going to be 100% on your side. So you might actually need to pay for that advice or that support, to have someone challenge you a bit and be like, well, wait a second, let's try and think about this from the kid's perspective. Like they are still a product of like, they can never, and that's the interesting thing about kind of pushing one parent a little bit out of the picture, is like, you have to be very careful about what the reasons you're doing that for and why you're doing it. Like, because your child will always have that other parent. Like they will always be that other parent's child, and they can never not be that parent's child. And so that's always going to be a question for them about their origin and who they are, and their self-identity. It's a real important piece. And I think that as parents and adults, sometimes we forget about that for our kids, that self like identity is really important, to knowing who you are and where you came from is critical to that.
Absolutely. And I've often had people, when I've been worried about parenting situations, and coming from a divorced home, and the kids not having 2 parents living at home with them, and oftentimes people are like, well, in this day and age, that is pretty much every kid in the class. But in my experience, it's not really been that easy for my kids. Sure, there is other kids that are in similar situations as them, but that doesn't take away their like need and want for this input and knowledge of the other parent. So it's still a challenge.
Still hard.
It's still hard for them, and emotional for them. And it's something that we've had to work on and support them throughout their childhood.
And that's going to be something that shapes and forms them as they go into adulthood, right? So making sure that they are learning, or I guess that you're supporting them, you're learning the skills to work through those difficult emotions for themselves when these moments come up where they're feeling, I guess, different from the other kids, or even if the other kids are the same, it doesn't mean that just because everyone's the same, hurting the same way doesn't mean it hurts less.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, you're in good company. It's like, well, it doesn't help.
Yeah, that's right. If we both break our arms, it doesn't mean that
the pain is any less. Yeah. It's like, well, I feel better now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh goodness. Okay, well, this one has been a bit longer, a little bit harder to kind of process our thoughts on the issue, but I guess, yeah, that's it. It's just like, don't be hard on yourself if you are having initial blind spots, or you're making decisions that maybe were just easier for you rather than, it's a real process. And I think that if you just commit yourself and make the effort to like try and take your perspective out of it, or like take a fulsome approach, then you're doing the right thing.
And yeah, just as long as you're trying your best, I mean, that's all that you can ask of yourself, is to do your best to put, see it from all sides and make the best decision. And I mean,
yeah,
sometimes you have to revisit that decision, and was that really the best decision? So I mean, it's human nature.
Yeah. And I will just sign off with saying, so Angela's wearing her orange shirt today because when we're filming this, it's the day before September 30th, which is the Truth and Reconciliation Day. And maybe at our next divorce chat, what we'll talk about just briefly is how, just talking about decisions, is like how one thing, one decision, or one act can have a ripple effect through generations. And I was educating myself a little bit on Canada Indigenous relations, and I was struck by a statistic, which is there are more Indigenous children in care today than were ever in residential schools. And this is a direct ripple effect from the residential school system and the 60s scoop on through now. We have this situation where we have all these Indigenous children in care. I mean, it's incredibly complex, and there's a huge amount of racism built into our systems, but also into each and every one of us that we need to work on. And so the idea is, yes, you might have to revisit decisions that were made. And I think that we are going to work and do our best to change what we can in ourselves and out in the world to change probably some pretty major historical wrongs that have been happening in Canada since before Canada was officially formed. Yes. Anyhow, so on that somber note, we'll get going. We'll leave you. And if you're interested in our chats, then please like or subscribe, hit the notification button. You can check out our website if you want to have any further legal support with us directly, one-on-one. We also have an Instagram page, @Alinea Legal Coaching, and a Facebook page, @Alinea Legal Coaching. So you can find more videos and more content from us. All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.